Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rob, and I'm a rules lawyer. Oh, not that kind. Not that kind. I'm not going to yell at you and tell you you're doing games wrong. Instead, what I do is I take an aspect of game creation and I bring it forth to introduce games to people and how they can run through the medium of character creation. I specialize in setting up the witness for you. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to my next character witness. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Rob, and I'm here for another character witness. We're going back to 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. I know I've already shown you how a character can be made for that with my character Galhard, but quite honestly, it's time to do another one. Because there's more than one way to make a character for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Galhard was a lot of fun. Very powerful, had a great deal of fun with him, but I'm yearning once more to play a spellcaster. And our game master has decided that at this point in the adventure, it's time that we are able to bring in other characters into the game. We've told our first story length, so I'm going to take advantage of that. But instead of using the standard point array system that I did with Galhard, we're going to go in a little bit different direction. This time he's okayed it for us to roll for our new characters. And I'm going to do just that. So this character witness is, again, going to be showing you a way that characters can be created for 5th edition, but it's going to be done using a little bit different medium. And you may see some changes in the way that we do things here, but I think it'll make the character witnesses a bit stronger. In this case, I'm prioritizing a caster of some sort. The advantage of 5th edition is that there are a variety of casters that a person can play for different spell types and different outlets. But in this case, I'm mostly interested in 3 avenues. One of these 3 would suffice for me. First of all, a cleric, primarily a cleric of light. They are a interesting blend of being able to heal their party, but at the same time support them with damaging spells, fireballs, and fire effects. Secondly, I would like to play a wizard of some sort, and I already have a concept that I have been kind of beating in the back of my head of playing a dwarven wizard. Kind of a reflex from all those times when dwarves could never be wizards. Now dwarves can, and I think an approach that dwarves would take towards magic would be quite interesting. Finally, if I should roll a really good charisma, I would like to play a sorcerer. Specifically, probably a dragonborn sorcerer. I like the idea of this race of dragon-blooded people and their different approach. Most of these concepts aren't necessarily tied down to a build or some great end goal. They come as a concept that I have for a character and then wanting to use the rules to mold that character. In this case, letting the dice tell me what I should make. So let's get at it, shall we? Alright, for this character creation, we're going to use 4 6-sided dice, dropping the lowest die rolled and totaling the rest of the sum for each score. We're writing on scratch paper, but I have a full character sheet here and the player's handbook here, so we are ready to go. 6, 4, and 4. That's a good 14 to start. 6, a 6, and a 3, dropping the 1, that's a 15. Very strong. Then we have a 6, a 5, and a 3, that's a 14. Pretty close to the standard array right now for the physical stats, but now come the important mental stats. This was strength, dexterity, and constitution. Now in the sheet we're going to go with intelligence, wisdom, and charisma and let this tell us what we're going to make. Oh, a 6, a 6, and a 6. Alright, if we have an 18 intelligence, I'm pretty sure the cosmos is telling me to make a spellcaster. But let's keep making this character up. Alright, a 5, a 2, and a 2, a 9. So not so wise, Mr. Caster. And there's the balance. For every 18, you're going to roll something a little lower, but a 9 compared to an 18 is not even close. And then we have a 5, a 4, and a 3 for a 12. All right. So pretty clear. This wants us to play a spellcaster. I am going to be making my wizard after all. So, wizard. We are going to make a mountain dwarf wizard, I believe. Yes. Mountain dwarf has a +2 to strength, so that'll be a 16. And Constitution, dwarves get a +2 to Constitution. So that'll leave us with a 16 there. So a 16 strength, 15 dexterity, 16 constitution, 18 intelligence, 9 wisdom, 12 charisma. Sounds like a very interesting take on a spellcaster. Now, in other games where I would have taken those numbers and moved them around, I might have, moved a higher number over to the, to wisdom to give them a better chance of employing their big brains. But in this case, we'll let things go as they are. My character's a little foolish. Doesn't always think his way through things, but relies upon his massive intelligence to get him through whatever's in front of him. Still decently apportioned with charisma, but his physical stats are definitely going to alter his view on things. So he's got great physical potential, but that's also coupled with a very, very high intellect. All right, we've recorded the fruits of the choice of a mountain dwarf. We know the class, we know the race. By adding in the bonuses for the race, we'll have a 16 strength, 15 constitution, or 15 dexterity, 16 constitution, 18 intelligence because of my roll, 9 wisdom, and a 12 charisma. Okay, before we even start checking in any of the other things, we're just looking at what the advantages of being a dwarf. 60 feet dark vision. That's never a bad thing. Dwarven resilience, advantage in resistance against poison, so poison becomes less scary, which is good for a wizard who generally will not have the kind of hit points to absorb heavy damage from poison. Stone cunning, so that I can leverage my excellent intelligence when I'm trying to determine things about stonework. Doesn't come up that often, but it might prove handy at some point. As a dwarf, I have skill in dwarven weapons, the battle axe, the hand axe, the light hammer, and the warhammer. Considering my strength, those are all great strength weapons. There's going to be a lot of synergy there for my dwarf to act like a dwarf. Skilled with brewer supplies. I figure that dovetails in nicely. I might be able to make some magical drinks down the road. And skill training in light and medium armor so that I am proficient. I can walk around in medium armor, I can run around with a battle axe, and I can cast spells without any penalty. Nice advantages all the way around. So the idea of a dwarven wizard is not a terrible one, and in this particular case, all this stuff works together to make a character who has all the benefits of being a warrior, at least at lower levels, before they start getting extra abilities. So I can defend myself in close range. And with my spell casting, I might be able to really supplement that. So, yay for me. All right, we now have the information as given by our class. We have, of course, we are a wizard. Right now we're writing down stats for first level. We will probably be advanced to a higher level based on how high the level of the characters are in the party already, because not everybody is going to be changing characters. But in this particular case, we have our stats, we have our race, and we have our class, so we're able to put down more information. First of all, the amount of hit points. Wizards start out with 6 hit points plus their constitution. Thanks to the +3 we have from our 16 constitution, that's a starting hit point total of 9. We have training in wizard weapons, which are going to be your light, typical wizard weapons, daggers, staffs, slings, which we're probably not going to be using very much. So we were given our starting gear of a quarterstaff, an arcane focus. I decided to go with an orb. Orbs are nice and exotic. I kind of fell in love with it after playing the game Neverwinter anyhow, where you always had that hovering orb around by you. And it seems to work better, I think, than a simple wand would for this dwarf. We have our spellbook, and we have a scholar's pack, which is a backpack, book of lore, bottle of ink pen, 10 sheets of parchment, small bag of sand, and a small knife. That is what we get before we get into background. We have our spell casting. Difficulty to save against our spells at first level is a 14, which, if you've played other versions of D&D, may not sound that great, but a lot of creatures don't have bonuses to saving throws, so it becomes a flat-out roll against a 14. If I raise my intelligence up to a 20 at some point, that goes up to a 15, and every time my proficiency modifier goes up, that number also raises, which is good. I mean, this is as good as you can get to start, so I'm fine with that. Unless I had a character race that raised my intelligence, but I'm not doing that. I can cast Ritual Magic directly out of the spellbook, which is one of the advantages that wizards really can leverage strongly. Any spell that they have in their spellbook that be cast as a ritual, they can cast it even if they don't have it prepared, which is something no other class can do. So wizards may feel like they can always cast magic as a reaction to something because that is their whole trade. I have my number of spell slots down, but I'm not filling out how many I would get because, as I said, I'm not 100% certain of the level that the DM is going to choose to allow us to have. I will have, for instance, at least my three cantrips to start out with, which is good. And I will choose those as the last part of what I'm doing. And when I find out what all the particulars are from my Dungeon Master, I can easily add those in at the beginning of the play session that I get to start playing him at. If I start out at 4th level or higher, I'll have an extra cantrip to add. First level, I would have 2 first level spell slots. Obviously, that would grow from there, which is fine. So, yeah, as of right now, I don't have the numbers to fill in here until I converse with the Dungeon Master. But if I was doing this at first level, I would have 2 first level spell slots and 3 cantrips. And I would, I believe, know 6 first level spells to start out with, which I will certainly do initially. Just to make sure, I would have start out with 3 cantrips, yes. I would have 6 first level spells, which those I will determine and then add to them as I go forward. So my starting equipment and everything is pretty straightforward. I am assuming that I will not start at first level because, yeah, I don't think he'd do that to me. So I've chosen the school that he's going to go into. He is going into the School of Abjuration. Abjuration is all of the magic involving wards and protections. So he is all about keeping himself and his comrades safe. This largely translates in 5th edition to being safe against other spellcasters, since they are some of the most high-powered threats in the game. Spells like Dispel Magic and Counterspell are key parts of Abjuration, but there are a lot of other potent abjurations that such a character could get into. So there is no shortage of avenues for an abjurer. Part of the advantage, learning new abjuration spells costs half and takes half of the time to scribe such a spell into your spellbook, which is cool. And they get an arcane ward whenever they cast an abjuration spell. They tap some of the magic and they protect themselves with a magic that lasts until they take a long rest. At first level, it would protect my character with 6 hit points of damage that get taken off of the ward before I take anything. This is particularly good for a caster who wears armor and gets into the thick of fights where he can use his magic most directly. So, yeah. This would be an interesting thing. At higher levels, they can actually use that ward to protect other people too. So, yeah, my character right now can be a very tough fighter. Even at first level, unless I, get really... there's no background that can let me start with any armor as a wizard. My character is immediately going to start looking for armor to wear, though. Medium armor that would allow him to use his dexterity to keep himself intact, and a shield. Oh wait, no, he's not trained in shields. Well, at any rate, he will get the kind of things that he needs to perform to his particular style. So that will involve getting some armor as soon as he can afford it, and also to attempt at first opportunity to gather the kind of things that a good weapon that he can use, a battle axe probably, maybe some hand axes to throw when he doesn't want to cast spells, when he doesn't want to draw attention to himself as a spellcaster especially. And most of his spells are going to be pretty subtle. So looking at the group, you're going to see an armored dwarf with an axe and probably not think he's the guy who's going to be throwing fireballs and counter spells and things like that. So hopefully that gives him a little bit of a leg going forward. So those are the numbers we get from being a wizard. All right. We now have finished our background after a little bit of soul searching and looking through the different options. I've chosen Guild Artisan because I think it'll dovetail in well with wizardry as a proper dwarf of the dwarves. So basically what Guild Artisan gives to me, first and foremost, the skills Insight and Persuasion. Not Perception, Persuasion, which are useful in everyday dealings with just about anyone. So they are two skills that are just good ones to have for everybody. I have a set of artisans tools, which I chose Brewer Supplies. There are some useful things in Brewer Supplies, including strainers and filters and things which might be useful in an adventure setting, getting fresh water for the group if we're confronted with tainted water. And the means of gathering the kind of supplies that you would use for brewing. So if I find some exotic herbal flowers that could go well in a brew I'm considering, I can use those supplies for that. I'm given a guild plaque, a little chit that demonstrates that I am a member of the Brewers Guild of the Dwarven peoples, which is, of course, a station of pretty good respect. With my character's intelligence and proficiency, my character is capable of coming up with some pretty startlingly good recipes. His low wisdom, however, means that maybe in practice he's a little on the sloppy side. He has a set of traveler's clothes and 15 gold pieces. Not a great bounty for this particular class or background, I'm afraid, but it should be sufficient to move him forward. He has guild membership, which means that the guild will look out for him if he gets into trouble, at least in civilized settings where they have reach. Not something I tend to draw on very often, but as long as I keep paying my dues anywhere that the dwarven brewers have any kind of influence, I can leverage my personality and influence in that way. So tavern keepers and so on, I expect to get good treatment. I even have a halfway decent charisma so that I could try to leverage that advantage. And so that gives me the hard advantages. As far as bonds, it kind of leads me to the personality traits. I didn't choose any one of them out of the list. I let my attributes, my concept for the character drive me. So I chose, for personality traits, magic is fine as a tool. It does not remove the value or joy of hard work. And that's going to be something that will, kind of drive my character. His magic is something that he uses right alongside of his weapons and his armor. As far as his ideals, my ideas may seem a bit radical, but they will learn to appreciate them. His idea of blending alchemy principles in with his brewing means stepping a little bit away from tradition and opening up whole new vistas that his masters probably would have squelched in the Brewers Guild. And the idea of the alchemists probably to make their potions palatable and possibly tie them in with alcoholic drinks also would seem a bit radical. So blending these two disciplines together would be the passion of my character and move him to what he's working towards ultimately. His bonds, I will bring the guilds that hold my fealty honor and advance their causes. So when he becomes a member of the Grand Order, he will be the perfect guild man. He will always want to do things for the Grand Order to advance their causes. And still, of course, being part of the Brewers Guild, he will always, of course, try to represent them in the best light. And he feels personally responsible for both. And as far as flaws, I often think, what can I do rather than should I do this? Meaning that he looks at potentials rather than possible drawbacks or failures. That's tied in with his low wisdom score, relatively low wisdom score. So a lot of times he will do the things that he thinks he's capable of doing without considering if this is really the best option or if this is even the safe option. So that is where his background's taken. All right, so we've finished fleshing out this character. The details to note: wrote down all of my skills. My character is very good at history and arcana at +6 to each of those because of his high intelligence and his proficiency. Things he is not very good in and either has contempt for or would stay away from: animal handling, raw wisdom, which he's not very good at, so he's not going to care very much for critters. Medicine, he'll rely on others to do medicine stuff. If he has to do it, he's in trouble. Perception, he's not the most perceptive dwarf. That's something we may have to look into trying to help out. Survival, he's again going to have to rely on his magic to help him out, otherwise his own innate toughness, he's not very good at that. But that's what allies are for, to help cover up those kind of weaknesses. Everything else he is solid at, with bonuses, in some cases pretty decent bonuses. Things like athletics, his raw strength of +3 gives him that +3. So yeah, as far as he'll stay away from things that rely on his wisdom, but will be quite good at a wide variety of things. His saving throws likewise. His intelligence saving throw is amazing. His wisdom, he's proficient in it, but he's not that wise, so it's only a +1. But his strength, his dexterity, his constitution are decent. So yeah, and along with his dwarven resilience, he's not too afraid of poison. So that's nice. We've kitted out his quarterstaff, even as a simple piece of wood. He's +5 to hit with it, and does 1d6 +3 with one hand, or 1d8 +3 with two hands. So it's a solid enough weapon. Although, as soon as he gets some money, he will be getting proper dwarfish weapons. As far as his looks and appearance, we rolled all of that out. 4 foot 7 inches tall, 161 pounds. He has short black hair, and he has a thin beard and mustache because, in my mind, when he passed his apprenticeship as a wizard, they trimmed off his beard and mustache to signify that he is a new dwarf going forward, to grow out his beard and his knowledge as he goes. So he's still growing back. He has dark earth brown skin, is appropriate to his race. His spellbook, he has Firebolt, Mage Hand, and Prestidigitation. I will always have Prestidigitation if I'm running with a wizard. I want their lives to seem magical when they wanted to. You know, to be able to light a pipe without having to pull out their flint and tinder, to be able to chill a goblet of wine so they can enjoy it. The fruits of their magic. Mage Hand, well, the ability to grab something when you're not actually there is just too useful. And Firebolt as his primary attack when he needs to attack something. Other cantrips as he grows out will probably feature other types of attacks, so he's not just limited to fire and his weapons. First level spells, Shield is his primary abjuration. When he is attacked, he'll be using his shield. That's just his standard method of operation. If he's attacked, that might save his bacon too, along with it, and that'll also activate his arcane ward. Identify. It's just a useful spell for every wizard, and it can also be cast as a ritual. So yeah, he can cast that whenever he needs to and never use up his slots doing it. Sleep, that's one of the most useful low-level spells for crowd control. It's just a very, very solid spell, quite honestly. Thunderwave. This is a short-range attack spell, which, of course, with his wearing armor, not being afraid to move up into a fight, also protected by his shield and his arcane ward, he would be able to use this relatively close-range spell to bowl over waves of enemies and break up shield walls levied against the group. So this is a spell that it will be one of his more common methods of attack. Longstrider. Dwarves have short legs, and he knows that. The spell gives him an hour where he adds 10 onto his movement speed, putting him a little bit faster than humans, up into the range of, more like barbarians or wood elves. And Fog Cloud, the ultimate control reset button. It doesn't matter if you have dark vision or any kind of special vision, this just creates a cloud that you can't see out of, which makes it a little bit better than darkness. For people who can see through magical darkness, they can't see through fog. So if you want to cause a group to be disoriented that you are fighting, judicious use of Fog Cloud can allow you to get away, to put yourself into strategic advantage. For other ideas on this, check out my podcast, An Honest Wizard, where I have discussed all of these spells, the advantages and disadvantages of each. Now, these spells that I've selected are going to be the ones that are the most targeted in actual effect. Later on, I'm looking for spells with utility and multiple uses. So things like Enlarge and Reduce that can buff your enemies and reduce your enemies. Or buff your allies and reduce your enemies. So those will be spells that I will be going after specifically with this character. But I'm excited with what I can do with all of this. His Firebolt will be an alright way of defending himself, but he will want to use his Battle Axe where he can because it does more damage. Yeah, there's a lot going forward with this character that makes me excited to play him. So, back to me for the summary. So, here we have our nice, shiny, new first level character. Name, I've named him Corbrecht Silverflame. I like, for dwarven names, something that sounds a little German, a little bit more guttural, and Corbrecht. Yeah, it's going to be requiring phlegm to say his name properly, so Corbrecht. And Cinderflume, basically his character would be, fire-based. It's a firebolt spell, and he'll have an attraction to fire and heat for brewing, proper brewing. Flume, as in a shaft commonly found that things work upward through. So, like a chimney. Good name, I think. All in all, I can't believe I rolled an 18 for his intelligence. Blows my mind. So, hey, I rolled a great character up this time. Who knew? Yeah, he doesn't have the greatest wisdom, and that'll probably bite him in the butt more than once. So he's actually going to be a wizard who is in danger of being mind-controlled at some point, and, well, we'll have to work around that. There may be a feat or something that he can use to help prop that up a little bit, but as of right now, he is just first level. We'll be adding to him when I find out what ultimate level he'll be able to be at. I suspect it's fourth, one level behind where I think I will be leaving off with Galhard, because I believe we'll level up next session. Galhard will be effectively fifth, the new character would be fourth. And a fourth level wizard is nothing to sneeze at. Obviously, fifth level wizard, you get that extra level of power, but I'll be satisfied for now playing a wizard again. As far as personality for the character, this is a character who has a motivation. He wants to go forward and succeed, not just for himself, but for his guild. He is a proper dwarf of the dwarves. The last few dwarves I've played have been something a little bit different. I played a dwarf barbarian who was of a noble house, but he cast off all of his advantages of his family and traditions and went off on his own, and was kind of going on a path to redemption to become more of like his people, but he died before he had a chance to do that. I also played a dwarf druid. Yeah, he was okay. This will be a proper dwarf of the dwarves, though. He will have his armor, he will have his weapons, he will take meticulous care of them. He will be all about all of the trappings of being a proper dwarf, which I've missed, quite honestly. He has depth to him. He has his background of being a guild merchant or a guild artisan, a crafter, a fine brewer in his own trade, and also an alchemist too. So his dream of blending and making magical brews, and making alchemical things that are based around spirits and liquors could be really exciting to try to do. And I'll be working a lot with the Game Master on that one. As far as his opening selection of spells, it's low-level adventuring fare, but getting more powerful is a big part of the Dungeons & Dragons, and looking at all the different ways that I can start playing around with spells. Again, if you haven't heard An Honest Wizard podcast, available on Spotify, Anchor, and a variety of other podcasting sources, I go into length about all the different ways that you can use some of these spells, different ideas that I've had and I've seen in different games. That is, to me, one of the great appeals of playing a wizard, especially in 5th edition, where things are a bit broader and not so narrowly defined in some cases, gives you a lot of range in what you can do. So yeah, I'm really excited. Targeted goals for this character, well, as far as magic goes, he'll want more abjurations. He'll want protection from good and evil, for example, will be the first spell that he gets at 2nd level. Down the road, there are a number of useful ones, like I said. Enlarge, reduce, the great double team spell that you can use in a couple different ways. There are a lot of spells that I really was impressed with as I've been going through all of the wizard spells. I'm now into the 2nd level of spells, and there's some fantastic ones out there. So getting to have the spell cards in front of me and looking at all the options that I have when I'm encountered something as a challenge really is the kind of thing that warms the cockles of my little gamer heart. So yes, strongly looking forward to that. And I already have a great personality in mind for the character. He's going to be very gregarious. He's going to be in a loud Scottish accent. He'll be talking to others, and he'll be attempting to inspire the dwarves among his people, including the dwarf that's already in the party. That will be fun. And, he'll be talking in a deep voice and all of that. And he'll be trying to seem intellectual at all times, even though his wisdom may not always necessarily allow him to do the wise thing. He'll be doing it with intelligence and craft and care as proper for a dwarf. So yes, I'm going to have a lot of fun with this character, and the fact that I have a high stat is nice. It's fine, but I would have made this character no matter what. Well, okay, if I'd have rolled differently, I might have made that sorcerer, I might have made that cleric, but in this case, I'm very happy. Wizard again, this will be exciting. So, thank you for joining me. I look forward to seeing you again, and maybe you'll hear a bit of how Corbrecht is doing if you pay attention to the State of the Dungeon addresses. So, thank you very much, and I'll see all of you next time I have a witness to bring forward for character. Farewell.